One, looking at the future, I guess one way of thinking about that is organizing these conferences. So you recently attended COP27 in Sharm el Sheikh in Egypt, the huge climate and other matter forum. What did you think about that? What did you make in terms of what was discussed there? And it's sort of, do you think it's going to move the movement in a good direction?
Sharm was my third COP. It's the climate change yearly conference. I've been to Denmark, to Copenhagen in 2009, and last year in Glasgow, and this year in Sharm. So if I look at what happened in Glasgow compared to Sharm was a disappointment. I think in many ways, first of all, what came out of Sharm is quite a disappointing thing. They didn't decide to keep 1.5 degrees decision, to keep that as a target. They didn't cancel it, but they didn't speak about trying to understand how we get there. The fossil fuel issue was discussed, but at the end they left it as it is, phasing out in a very vague way. One good thing that happened is that the loss and damages fund, that is a nice thing, but it's still far from being implemented. It will be implemented this year. It's just becoming. They are going to build a committee, and also we need to be aware that the word of loss and damages fund is a bit misleading, because it's not really. We are not going to compensate them for what we the developed world did to them, but we are going to help them if they have problems, while they have after hurricanes and stuff like that, they'll have some money to repair. So I think people look at it as a very big achievement, because America and the EU didn't want to do it.
You're saying it's ignoring the price the developing world is already paying for the huge amount of emissions contributed way disproportionately by, well, the US, but also other parts of the developed world.
It's like we know that the developing world is paying for what the developed world did. And this fund is not going to compensate it. It's just going to help them deal with
specific disasters.
Deal with disaster. That is nice, but it's it. But why do I think it was disappointing? Because I think we would know it from the beginning. First of all, it came after the war in Ukraine, and the problem of energy, and the price rise of oil, and that means that it was very profitable to invest in oil. That was the beginning part. That's how it started. So it wasn't a good start. But I think another problem is that I found that was not helping, if we can say the least, is that the Egyptian from the beginning said that they won't allow demonstrations. So all the idea of civil society bringing the issue of urgency didn't exist there.
Right, because I think for COP26, that actually made much more headlines than the conference itself, was the sheer amount of protests. I know, almost attempting to bring the conference to a halt didn't happen, but just looking at COP27, that wasn't seen.
Yeah, Glasgow spoke climate change. It spoke urgency. There was on Sunday there was the big rally of climate change. It was like hundreds of thousands of people rallied on the streets speaking about climate change, and I think the leaders felt it, and then they didn't have the option of not getting into a deal. Here it was, the demonstrations were plastic, like there were 5 people standing in the conference rooms. It wasn't really, and you didn't hear it, you didn't feel the urgency, so why bother? We need to remember, leaders need to pay a lot of they need to make an effort to make it happen.
They need to see it in their face. They need to be heckled, eggs thrown at them.
They need to be pushed. They need to understand that if they don't do it, they won't get away with it. And in Sharm, It wasn't there.
And that accountability from the general public, it was a missed opportunity.
I think it. If you ask the leaders, I don't know if they'll say that's why we didn't decide it. But I think there was this idea of we will get away with not deciding, allow it to happen. But
And there's not that long to go until 2030.
yeah, but the next, first of all, yes, we need to start moving. I think we just spoke about climate change, but I think what we see is that in many, many ways, through climate change, we see so many other problems that we have to deal with, and we need to rush. And that's why going back to impact investing and responsible investment is so important, because that's where money is. That's what will decide how the economy will move and where will it move to. So it's
The world doesn't have time for a bad COP or for a less than ideal COP.
yes. One thing that did happen in the COP, and we saw a couple of achievements, not in the big decisions, but in small decisions. Like first of all, the financial institution in the world understand that they need to go net zero for 2050, moving from now. So that's one move that we saw in Glasgow and continue now. But also we saw some government things. For example, the American government decided the supply chain will have to go to be all their big supply chain suppliers, meaning 85%, I think, from their suppliers will have to disclose their climate change achievement. So it will start moving. There was this, I think, that compared to the disappointment in the decisions part, I think we see a lot of movements in the local areas.
And in terms of the big blocks, we're obviously also seeing the SEC proposal still out there, and the EU actually moving quicker to implement